What's up guys, it's JCARDENASART, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use drawing pencils. This is definitely what you use it for, man. Watch my new YouTube channel where I just balance stuff on my face. No. 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 Drawing. Just watch the video. Alright, so I'm using Vellum Bristol. I got a pad from Blick, and then I'm using the Faber-Castell 9000 series. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. We're going to use these to shade. Very first one we're using is the 2H. We're going to use this one to sketch and do the lightest of the shading. Then we're going to do an HB. And then we're going to upgrade to the B. And then, we're going to get a little darker with the 4B. And then darker with the 6B. And of course the 8B. So for the sake of this video, we're going to call it levels. Level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Level 6 being the darkest, level 1 being the lightest. So we're going to use the H first, like I said, because it's the lightest. The H are always the lightest. The higher the number on the H, the lighter they are. Same thing applies with the B. I'm using this one because it's really light, and if I need to erase, I can erase without a problem. And then we're going to get darker. Then we're going to continue level 2, 3, 4, and so on, and then continue down the Bs. The higher the number on the B, the darker it is, which is why the 8B is the darkest. So we're going to start level 1, 2, 3, and so on. And then this way you can get your gradients in, and you can get your lightest to your darkest. Then, of course, we're going to use a sharpener to sharpen your pencils. Basic sharpener is fine. And of course, your eraser, so that you can erase if you need to. If you actually take your time and you draw lightly and you do it the way that I tell you, you might actually get away with not having to use the eraser. And then of course, we're gonna need a napkin. The reason we're gonna use a napkin is because when, let's say you got a drawing here and it's like, nice and done, you were going to set the napkin down, then put your hand on top, and you draw on the other side. So that way the pencil, and that way the side of your palm doesn't smudge the drawing. And yeah, the napkin's there to remind you. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to take the 2H like I said earlier. Since it's the lightest one, we're going to do our sketch. We're going to sketch the whole drawing in. We're going to be very loose, very light. I'm going to be speeding up the process of the drawing because if not, we're going to be here for 2 hours. When it comes to sketching, I don't put in a lot of details. I just mark down where everything's going to go. They're pretty basic shapes. If you need to sketch down every single detail, then so be it. That's fine. Just make sure that you're doing it lightly, and if you need to erase, you can erase, and then just leave all the darks for when you're shading. Alright, so now that we have the sketch done, that we did with the 2H, it's nice and light, we got the whole composition down. So now we're ready for the first level of shading, which we're still going to keep the 2H to do. The light is coming from up top. You got to figure out where your light source is coming from, because everything on the opposite side is going to be darker. So, we're going to start, since it's the lightest shading, we're going to start kind of halfway. So we're going to put our first layer of shading down. I'm going to start halfway through the body. Now, for example, here, since the light is coming from up top, this tentacle, for example, is facing away from the light. Remember that the light is coming from up top. So since the light shadows down, so this whole bottom area here is going to be the darkest of the drawing. And then this is going to be like the middle tone, and then the lighter tone, like where we are, the 2H, and then up top, we're not really going to touch much. And done. So now that we finished with the 2H, we can move on to the HB, and we can hit level 2 on the shading. So since we just hit the lightest, now we're gonna go a little darker. We're gonna go into the middle ground, and then we're gonna go down here into the darkest spots, because we gotta shade those in too. It's darker than what we just shaded in. So now we're gonna be very slow, very soft. We're going to take our time and kind of just let the weight of the pencil and the fact that it's already darker do its thing. You don't want to press on it. Just let the pencil itself make it dark. All you have to do is just move over it and shade it slowly. Now here in the eye, remember, eyes are not flat, they're round. So there's going to be a shade to them as well, especially back here behind the eye. And in the eye itself. It's a little shade, it's round. So now remember, the light is coming from up top, so this part down here, which is farther away from the light, is going to be a little darker. Again, let the pencil do its thing. You don't want to cover everything you just did. You just want to cover only the spots that are a little darker. As you go darker in your shading, you can get a little more detail. You can start defining the details with the shading itself. Do not start pressing super hard on it. Let the shades of lights and darks define the edges. Now be careful, when your pencil is super sharp, when you're shading, the chances of it being scratchy are high. So if I was you, I would shade a little bit on a separate sheet of paper to soften up the tip of the pencil a little bit. Alright, so now that we're done with the HB, right, if you notice, it goes from a 2H down to an HB, and then as the lower you go, the darker it gets, especially for this tentacle. So now we're going to switch over to the B. This part down here is darker because remember, the tentacles are round. They're not flat. So as the light hit from up top, it gets a little darker as it curves towards the bottom. So that's why I'm shading this in right here. So we're gonna keep it nice and slow, soft, let the pencil do its thing. Like I've said before, it's very crucial because once you start pressing too hard, then you know you're not gonna let the pencils build up on their own. And you're just gonna carry this on to the rest of the body. Remember, light comes in and it slowly gets darker. Now I'm gonna speed up the process real quick. I'm gonna pull out the 4B, which would be the next level, and I'm gonna show you what happens as the light comes in. The farther you would get away from the light, like I've mentioned before, because it's very important. The farther you get away from the light, the darker it gets. So you're at a 2H HB B, and now we're gonna go for a 4B. So you see how how it darkens up. And then on this part of the tentacle, since it's farther away and it's facing away from the light, it's gonna be much darker, which was where I'm gonna use the 4B. Down here on the tentacle, remember, like I said, the tentacle curves, it's not flat. So you gotta darken it up just a little bit more, not the whole thing, just a little bit more to show that it gradually gets darker. So now we're gonna go back real quick to the B, and we're gonna work on the eye. I'm gonna show you this as another example. We're gonna shade in where it's a little darker. Remember, the eye is round. It's gonna get a little darker the farther away from the light it is, and since it's right next to the edge of the eye, it's gonna be darker. Same thing with the eye, color in the eye, and then we're gonna shade in the eyeball just enough to show that it's round. And now we're gonna switch over to the 4B and do the same thing, just a little darker. And now we're gonna go back to the B and repeat the same process over here, just to give you examples. But you're gonna do this to the whole body, so gotta speed it up now. Remember, as you're shading, the darker you get, the more defined your lines can get. So your details can start coming out. Okay, so I decided to draw in another tentacle here because the bottom of the paper, I don't know, like, let me see, let me focus. So the bottom of the paper here was pretty empty. So I just, I sketched in another tentacle. It's going to be the same process as before, same pencils, same steps. Same process, same steps, except that since this tentacle is directly below the body and it's covered mostly by the body, it's going to be one of the darkest parts of the drawing. Now that we finished with the 4B all the way around, if you notice, and it get dark, we got all the lights and the darks, but now we're going to switch over to 6B and we're going to get the even darker areas. We're on the next level of shading. We're going to hit this whole area here and all this down here and this little area here because all this because it's facing away from the light, so it's going to be darker, and you want to exaggerate the lights and the darks so that it really pops. The B pencils, as they get higher in number, they get much darker and much softer. So that's when the pencil really starts to pick up. So this is when I pull out the napkin. But, it's best to use it from the very beginning. So I hit all the whole drawing. So I hit the whole drawing with the 6B, right? So now it's looking real nice. But here's the problem. You see these two tentacles here? They almost blend into each other. I kind of don't like that. So I feel like it can get darker, right? Which is why we have the 8B. We're going to use the 8B to really, really, really darken up and hit all these spots that are super, super dark and show the difference between these two. And we're going to hit all the spots that are really, 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 really dark. Like this tentacle down here, for example, which is practically blocked by the body. There you go. You can tell these two apart now. Let's make this part a little darker here because it's right underneath this flap. There we go. And now let's work in these little dark areas. Right here in the back of the body. A little bit in the tentacle. You're going to use the 8B to really, really put in those last details. And see, now you can tell. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to... Oh, wait, hold on a second. Forgot this little guy here. There we go. All right, I think that's looking pretty good. Now let's do the same thing to the rest of the drawing. And we're done. So easy. Now the light's hitting up top and it gets a little darker, and then you got all the really darkest spots. If you notice the effect of the lights in the darks, it kind of, like the lightest parts look like they're shaded, but they're not. It's just a really, really bright light. And I think it came out awesome. All right, so stay tuned for some glam shots. Thank you guys for watching my video. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned a thing or two. If you did, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. My next YouTube video is gonna be me packaging the drawing up and shipping it to my cousin. If you're interested in how I do that, turn on the bell for notifications so you can know when it comes up. I'll see you guys soon.